Jasmine Carter stood in front of the Grand Horizon Hotel, her heart pounding with a mix of excitement and apprehension. At 32, she had already accomplished more than most people her age, but this moment felt different. As the newly appointed chief operating officer of her father's hotel chain, she was here to conduct a surprise inspection of their flagship property. Taking a deep breath, Jasmine smoothed down her crisp navy suit and pushed open the gleaming glass doors. The lobby buzzed with activity, guests checking in, bellhops ferrying luggage, and the soft murmur of conversation. No one paid much attention to her as she made her way to the front desk, and that was exactly how she wanted it. "Good morning," Jasmine said politely to the receptionist, a young white woman with a name tag that read, "Emily. I'd like to speak with the hotel manager, please." Emily's eyes flicked over Jasmine, taking in her professional attire and confident demeanor. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked, her tone slightly dismissive. Jasmine felt a familiar twinge of irritation but kept her expression neutral. "No, I don't, but I assure you, he'll want to speak with me." Emily's eyebrows raised a fraction. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Blackwell is very busy. If you'd like to make an appointment—" "That won't be necessary," Jasmine interrupted firmly. "Please inform Mr. Blackwell that Jasmine Carter is here to see him. He'll know what it's about." At the mention of her name, Emily's eyes widened slightly. She hesitated for a moment before picking up the phone and dialing an extension. After a brief conversation, she hung up and turned back to Jasmine with a forced smile. "Mr. Blackwell will be down shortly. You can wait over there." She gestured to a seating area near the elevators. Jasmine nodded her thanks and moved to take a seat. As she waited, she observed the comings and goings of the hotel staff, making mental notes about efficiency and customer interactions. She was so engrossed in her observations that she almost missed the arrival of Richard Blackwell. "Ms. Carter?" A deep voice interrupted her thoughts. Jasmine looked up to see a tall, middle-aged white man in an expensive suit extending his hand. "I'm Richard Blackwell, the hotel manager. To what do I owe the pleasure of this unexpected visit?" Jasmine stood and shook his hand firmly. "Mr. Blackwell, thank you for seeing me on such short notice. I'm here to conduct an impromptu inspection of the property." Blackwell's smile faltered for a moment before he regained his composure. "An inspection? I wasn't aware that corporate was planning any inspections this quarter." "That's the point of an impromptu inspection, Mr. Blackwell," Jasmine replied coolly. "To see how the hotel operates on a typical day, without any special preparations." Blackwell's eyes narrowed slightly. "I see. And may I ask what your position is with the company, Ms. Gauss Carter? I don't believe we've met before." Jasmine could feel the weight of his gaze, the unspoken question behind his words. She'd encountered this countless times before, the assumption that she couldn't possibly be in a position of authority. "I'm the new chief operating officer," she stated matter-of-factly. "Now, shall we begin the tour?" The shock on Blackwell's face was evident, but he quickly masked it with a tight smile. "Of course, Ms. Carter. Right this way." As they walked through the hotel, Jasmine asked pointed questions about occupancy rates, customer satisfaction scores, and staff turnover. Blackwell answered each query with practiced ease, but Jasmine could sense his growing unease. Their tour eventually led them to the kitchens, where the lunch rush was in full swing. As they entered, Jasmine noticed a young black woman struggling to balance a large tray of dirty dishes. Before she could react, the woman stumbled, sending plates and cutlery clattering to the floor. "For God's sake, Shanice!" Blackwell exploded, his face reddening. "Can't you do anything right? This is exactly why we don't put your kind in front-of-house positions." The kitchen fell silent, all eyes turning to the scene. Jasmine felt a surge of anger, but before she could speak, another voice cut through the tension. "Mr. Blackwell." A tall, distinguished-looking older man in a chef's uniform stepped forward. "That is entirely uncalled for. Accidents happen, and Shanice is one of our hardest workers." Blackwell turned to the chef, his expression a mix of surprise and indignation. "Chef Martinez, this is none of your concern. I suggest you focus on your own duties." Jasmine had seen enough. She stepped forward, her voice calm but steely. Actually, Mr. Blackwell, this is very much my concern, and I believe we need to have a serious conversation about the way you manage this hotel and treat your staff. Blackwell's head whipped around, his eyes widening as he remembered Jasmine's presence. Miss Carter, I can explain. I think you've explained quite enough, Jasmine cut him off. She turned to Shanice, who was still kneeling on the floor, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. Are you all right? Shanice nodded silently, avoiding eye contact. Chef Martinez knelt beside her, helping to gather the broken dishes. It's okay, Shanice. Accidents happen to everyone. Jasmine turned back to Blackwell, her voice low but intense. Mr. Blackwell, I'd like to continue our conversation in your office, now. As they left the kitchen, Jasmine could feel the eyes of every staff member on her back. She knew that what happened next would set the tone not just for this hotel, but for the entire company. The weight of responsibility settled on her shoulders, but instead of feeling burdened, she felt energized. This was why she had worked so hard to reach this position, to make real change. In Blackwell's opulent office, Jasmine wasted no time getting to the point. Mr. Blackwell, what I witnessed in that kitchen was completely unacceptable. Not only was your behavior unprofessional, but it was also blatantly racist and discriminatory. Blackwell's face flushed red again, this time with anger. Now, wait just a minute, Miss Carter. You can't just come in here and start throwing around accusations like that. I've been managing this hotel for 15 years, and I won't have some young upstart telling me how to do my job. Jasmine's eyes flashed dangerously. This young upstart happens to be your new boss, Mr. Blackwell, and I can assure you, I'm more than qualified to tell you exactly how to do your job, or in this case, how not to do it. She leaned forward, her voice low and intense. What I saw today goes against everything our company stands for. We pride ourselves on diversity, inclusion, and respect for all our employees and guests. Your behavior not only violates our company policies, but also basic human decency. Blackwell's anger seemed to deflate, replaced by a dawning realization of the gravity of his situation. Ms. Carter, I didn't mean... Intent doesn't matter when the impact is so harmful, Jasmine cut him off. The question now is, what are we going to do about it? Before Blackwell could respond, a knock at the door interrupted them. Come in, Jasmine called out, curious about the interruption. The door opened to reveal Chef Martinez, still in his kitchen whites. I apologize for the intrusion, he said, his voice steady but his eyes blazing with determination. But I couldn't in good conscience stay silent about what happened downstairs. Jasmine nodded, gesturing for him to continue. Chef Martinez stepped fully into the office, closing the door behind him. Mr. Blackwell, what happened to Shanice wasn't an isolated incident, he began, his gaze fixed on the hotel manager. I've witnessed similar behavior from you towards our staff of color on multiple occasions. It creates a hostile work environment and goes against everything I believe in as a leader in this kitchen. Blackwell's face paled, his earlier bravado completely gone. Jasmine turned to the chef, her respect for him growing. Thank you for speaking up, Chef Martinez. Your courage is commendable. She then addressed Blackwell, her tone firm and unyielding. Mr. Blackwell, in light of these revelations, I'm placing you on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation. We'll be conducting interviews with all staff members to get a complete picture of the situation. Blackwell slumped in his chair, the fight gone out of him. I understand, he mumbled, not meeting Jasmine's eyes. Jasmine stood, signaling the end of the conversation. Chef Martinez, would you be willing to step in as interim manager while we sort this out? Your leadership and integrity are exactly what this hotel needs right now. The chef looked surprised but nodded firmly. Of course, Ms. Carter, I'd be honored to help in any way I can. As they left Blackwell's office, Jasmine felt a mix of emotions, anger at what she'd witnessed, pride in Chef Martinez's actions, and a renewed determination to make lasting changes. She knew this was just the beginning of a long journey, but she was ready for the challenge. Chef Martinez, she said as they walked towards the elevators. I'd like to speak with Shanice and any other staff members who've experienced discrimination here. Can you help arrange that? The chef nodded, a small smile on his face. Absolutely, Ms. Carter. And if I may say so, I think your father would be very proud of how you're handling this situation. Jasmine paused, surprised by his words. You know who I am? Chef Martinez's smile widened. I've been here since your father opened this hotel. I remember you running through these halls as a little girl. It's an honor to see the strong, principled woman you've become. Jasmine felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words. As they stepped into the elevator, she knew that with allies like Chef Martinez, real change was possible. The road ahead would be challenging, but she was ready to face it head-on. As the elevator doors closed, Jasmine turned to Chef Martinez and asked, "So, tell me more about the staff here. What changes do you think we need to make to create a truly inclusive environment?" As the elevator descended, Chef Martinez began to outline the challenges facing the Grand Horizon Hotel. Ms. Carter, the issues here run deep, he said, his voice tinged with frustration. It's not just Mr. Blackwell. There's a culture of subtle discrimination that's been allowed to fester for years. Jasmine nodded, her brow furrowed in concentration. I suspected as much. Can you give me some specific examples? The elevator doors opened, and they stepped out into the bustling lobby. Chef Martinez lowered his voice as they walked. Well, for instance, our front desk staff is almost entirely white, while housekeeping and kitchen staff are predominantly people of color. Promotions seem to follow the same pattern. That's unacceptable, Jasmine murmured, her mind already racing with potential solutions. What about customer interactions? Have you noticed any disparities there? Chef Martinez's expression darkened. Unfortunately, yes. There have been instances where guests of color were treated with less courtesy or even outright suspicion. Some staff members have even been instructed to keep a closer eye on certain guests based solely on their race. Jasmine felt a familiar knot of anger and disappointment in her stomach. It was a feeling she knew all too well from her own experiences with discrimination. But now, she was in a position to do something about it. As they approached the staff break room, Jasmine paused. Chef, I want to thank you for your honesty. It's not easy to speak up about these issues, especially to someone you've just met. Your integrity is exactly what we need to turn this situation around. The chef smiled warmly. Thank you, Ms. Carter. I've been waiting for someone like you to come along and shake things up. Now, shall we meet with the staff? Jasmine nodded, squaring her shoulders as Chef Martinez opened the door to the break room. Inside, a group of employees sat in tense silence, their eyes widening as Jasmine entered. She recognized Shanice from the kitchen incident, sitting in a corner with red-rimmed eyes. Good afternoon, everyone, Jasmine began, her voice clear and confident. I'm Jasmine Carter, the new Chief Operating Officer of Carter Hospitality Group. I'm here because some serious issues have come to light, and I want to hear directly from you about your experiences working at the Grand Horizon. A murmur rippled through the room, and Jasmine could see a mix of hope and skepticism on the faces before her. She continued, I want to assure you that everything said in this room will be kept confidential. Your jobs are not at risk for speaking up. In fact, your honesty is crucial if we're going to make this hotel a truly inclusive and respectful workplace for everyone. For a moment, no one spoke. Then, Shanice slowly raised her hand. Ms. Carter, she began hesitantly, what happened in the kitchen today? It wasn't the first time. Mr. Blackwell, he often speaks to us like that. Especially those of us who are Black or Latino. Jasmine nodded encouragingly. Thank you for your bravery, Shanice. Can you tell me more about how this has affected you and your colleagues? As Shanice began to speak, others joined in. Stories of missed promotions, unfair scheduling, and daily microaggressions poured out. Jasmine listened intently, asking questions and taking mental notes. The pain and frustration in the room were palpable, but so was a growing sense of hope. One of the housekeepers, an older Black woman named Dorothy, spoke up. Ms. Carter, we've tried to speak up before, but nothing ever changes. How do we know this time will be different? Jasmine met Dorothy's gaze steadily. Because this time, you have me. I'm not just here to listen. I'm here to act. Starting today, we're going to implement changes that will transform the culture of this hotel. But I can't do it alone. I need all of you to be part of this change." She outlined her immediate plans: a thorough review of all hiring and promotion practices, mandatory diversity and inclusion training for all staff, and the creation of an anonymous reporting system for any incidents of discrimination or harassment. "But these are just the first steps," Jasmine continued. "I want to form a diversity and inclusion committee, made up of staff from all levels and departments. This committee will have direct access to me and will play a crucial role in shaping our policies moving forward." As Jasmine spoke, she could see the mood in the room shifting. Skepticism gave way to cautious optimism and then to genuine enthusiasm. By the time she finished, there was a palpable energy in the air. "Miss Carter," Shanice said, her voice stronger now, "I'd like to volunteer for the committee. I want to be part of making things better here." Others quickly followed suit, raising their hands and offering ideas. Jasmine felt a surge of pride and determination. This was why she had worked so hard to reach this position, to create real, meaningful change. As the meeting wound down, Jasmine pulled Chef Martinez aside. "I need your help," she said quietly. "We need to address the rest of the staff, including those who might be resistant to these changes. Can you gather everyone in the ballroom in an hour?" The chef nodded, a glint of excitement in his eyes. "Consider it done, Miss Carter, and if I may say so, I haven't seen the staff this energized in years. You're already making a difference." Jasmine smiled, but her mind was already racing ahead to the challenges that lay before her. She knew that not everyone would be as receptive to change as this group had been. There would be resistance, maybe even backlash. But she was ready for it. An hour later, Jasmine stood at the podium in the Grand Horizon's largest ballroom, facing a sea of faces that ranged from curious to concerned to openly hostile. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of all the times she had faced down skepticism and prejudice in her career. "Good afternoon, everyone," she began, her voice strong and clear. "My name is Jasmine Carter, and I'm the new Chief Operating Officer of Carter Hospitality Group. I'm here today because we are at a crucial turning point for the Grand Horizon Hotel, and indeed, for our entire company." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Today I witnessed behavior that goes against everything we should stand for as a company. I heard stories of discrimination, unfair treatment, and a culture of fear that has no place in any workplace, let alone one that prides itself on hospitality." A murmur ran through the crowd. Jasmine could see some people shifting uncomfortably, while others nodded in agreement. "I want to be clear," she continued, her voice taking on a steely edge. "This ends now. Starting today, we are implementing a zero-tolerance policy for any form of discrimination or harassment. We will be conducting a thorough review of all our practices, from hiring to promotions to customer service protocols." She outlined the changes she had discussed with the staff earlier, emphasizing the creation of the Diversity and Inclusion Committee. "This is not just about following the law or avoiding bad publicity," Jasmine said, her passion evident in every word. "This is about creating a workplace where every single person feels valued, respected, and empowered to do their best work." As she spoke, Jasmine could see the mood in the room shifting. Some faces remained skeptical, even angry, but many more were nodding, their expressions thoughtful or even excited. "I know that change can be uncomfortable," Jasmine acknowledged. "Some of you may be wondering how this will affect you, or why we need to change at all. To those of you, I say this: a diverse, inclusive workplace isn't just the right thing to do morally. It's also good for business. Studies have shown time and time again that diverse teams are more innovative, more productive, and better at problem solving." She leaned forward, her voice intense. "Yeah, but more than that, it's about who we want to be as a company. Do we want to be known as a place that clings to outdated, harmful practices? Or do we want to lead the way in creating a truly welcoming environment for both our staff and our guests?" As Jasmine concluded her speech, the room erupted into applause. It wasn't universal. She could see pockets of resistance. Employees who sat with arms crossed and frowns on their faces. But the overwhelming response was positive. As she stepped down from the podium, Jasmine was approached by a young white man in a suit. "Miss Carter," he said, extending his hand. "I'm Brian Thompson from the sales department. I just wanted to say thank you. My wife is Black, and some of the stories she's told me about her workplace experiences, well, it's opened my eyes. I want to help make sure nothing like that happens here." Jasmine shook his hand, feeling a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, Brian. We're going to need allies like you to make this change stick." As the crowd began to disperse, Jasmine noticed a group of older employees huddled together, shooting glares in her direction. She knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy, but she was ready for the challenge. Chef Martinez appeared at her side. "That was quite a speech, Mrs. Carter," he said with a smile. "I think you've lit a fire under this place." Jasmine nodded, her expression determined. "This is just the beginning, Chef. We've got a lot of work ahead of us." As they walked out of the ballroom, Jasmine turned to the chef. "I'm going to need your help identifying both our biggest allies and our potential roadblocks. Can you give me a rundown of the key players here?" Chef Martinez nodded, his expression turning serious. "Of course, Ms. Carter. Why don't we discuss this over dinner? I know a quiet place where we can talk freely." Jasmine agreed, realizing she hadn't eaten all day. As they headed towards the hotel exit, she felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The real work was just beginning, but for the first time in a long time, she felt truly hopeful about the future. The small Italian restaurant was dimly lit, providing a cozy atmosphere for Jasmine and Chef Martinez to discuss the day's events. As they settled into their booth, Jasmine could feel the tension of the day starting to ease from her shoulders. "So, Chef," Jasmine began, taking a sip of water, "tell me about the key players at the Grand Horizon. Who do you think will be our strongest allies in making these changes?" Chef Martinez leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Well, you've already met Shanice. She's young, but she's got a strong sense of justice, and she's well-liked by her co-workers. I think she could be a powerful voice on your diversity committee." Jasmine nodded, making a mental note. "What about management? Any department heads you think will be on board?" Sarah Chen in HR has been trying to implement more inclusive hiring practices for years, but she's been consistently blocked by Blackwell, Chef Martinez replied. "I think she'll be thrilled to have your support." "And Marcus Adebayo in IT. He's brilliant and has faced his fair share of discrimination here. He'd be a great asset." As their appetizers arrived, Jasmine steered the conversation to potential obstacles. "And who do you think will resist these changes the most?" Chef Martinez sighed, his forehead creasing. "That's where things get tricky. There's a group of longtime employees who've benefited from the old system. They're not going to give up their privileges without a fight." He lowered his voice, glancing around the restaurant. "Tom Bradshaw in finance is probably your biggest threat. He's been here almost as long as Blackwell, and he's got a lot of influence with the older staff. He's smart enough not to be openly racist, but he's been known to sabotage the careers of employees of color." Jasmine felt a familiar knot of anger in her stomach, but she kept her voice calm. "Thank you for the heads up, Chef. It's crucial that we identify these issues early on." As they continued their meal, Jasmine and Chef Martinez delved deeper into the hotel's dynamics, discussing everything from interdepartmental rivalries to unofficial social hierarchies. By the time their dessert arrived, Jasmine had a much clearer picture of the challenges that lay ahead. "Chef," Jasmine said as they were finishing up, "I can't thank you enough for your insights. You've given me a lot to think about." Chef Martinez smiled warmly. "It's my pleasure, Ms. Carter. I have to admit, I was losing hope that things would ever change around here. But after today, well, let's just say you've restored my faith." As they left the restaurant, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. Tomorrow would be a new day, and she was ready to hit the ground running. The next morning, Jasmine arrived at the hotel early, determined to start implementing her plans. She had just settled into her temporary office when there was a knock at the door. "Come in," she called out, looking up from her laptop. The door opened to reveal Sarah Chen, the HR director Chef Martinez had mentioned. She was a petite Asian woman in her early 40s, with a no-nonsense expression that softened as she met Jasmine's gaze. "Ms. Carter," Sarah said, stepping into the office. "I hope I'm not interrupting. I wanted to introduce myself and, Well, to thank you for what you're doing here. Jasmine stood, extending her hand with a warm smile. Sarah, it's great to meet you. Please, have a seat. I was hoping we could talk about revamping our hiring and promotion practices. Sarah's eyes lit up as she sat down. I've been wanting to do that for years. I have so many ideas, but Mr. Blackwell always shut them down. For the next hour, Jasmine and Sarah dove into the details of creating a more inclusive hiring process. They discussed everything from rewriting job descriptions to eliminate biased language to implementing blind resume screenings. As their meeting was wrapping up, another knock came at the door. This time, it was Marcus Adebayo from IT, a tall Nigerian man with a friendly smile. Ms. Carter, he said, his voice tinged with excitement. I heard about what happened yesterday, and I wanted to offer my support. I've been working on a data analysis project that I think could help identify patterns of discrimination in our customer service interactions. Jasmine's eyes widened with interest. Marcus, that sounds incredibly valuable. Can you walk me through it? For the next half hour, Marcus explained his project, showing how he had used AI algorithms to analyze customer feedback and identify potential biases in how different guests were treated. Jasmine was impressed not only by the sophistication of the analysis, but also by Marcus's passion for using technology to promote equality. As Marcus was leaving, Jasmine caught sight of a figure lingering in the hallway, Tom Bradshaw, the finance director Chef Martinez had warned her about. His expression was unreadable as he watched Marcus exit the office. Mr. Bradshaw, Jasmine called out, her voice firm but polite. Would you like to come in? I'd love to get your thoughts on our new initiatives. Tom hesitated for a moment before entering the office, his posture stiff and his expression guarded. Miss Carter, he said, his tone carefully neutral. I have to say, you've certainly stirred things up around here. Jasmine met his gaze steadily. Change is often uncomfortable, Mr. Bradshaw, but it's necessary for growth. I'm sure someone with your experience understands that. Tom's eyes narrowed slightly. Experience, yes. That's something that seems to be undervalued these days. We have systems and procedures in place for a reason. Miss Carter, disrupting them could have unintended consequences. The threat in his words was thinly veiled, but Jasmine refused to be intimidated. I appreciate your concern, Mr. Bradshaw. Rest assured, we're not discarding experience. We're enhancing it with fresh perspectives and more inclusive practices. I'd love to hear your ideas on how we can make this transition smoother for everyone. Tom seemed taken aback by Jasmine's response. He had clearly expected confrontation, not collaboration. Well, I suppose I could put together some projections on how these changes might impact our bottom line, he said, somewhat grudgingly. Jasmine nodded, keeping her expression open and engaged. That would be extremely helpful, thank you. And while you're at it, could you also look into potential cost savings from increased employee retention and improved customer satisfaction? Studies have shown that more diverse and inclusive workplaces often see improvements in those areas. Tom's eyebrows raised slightly, a flicker of grudging respect crossing his face. I'll look into it, he said, his tone less hostile than before. As Tom left the office, Jasmine let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. She knew she had just navigated a crucial interaction, not winning Tom over entirely, but at least preventing him from becoming an outright enemy. The rest of the day passed in a whirlwind of meetings and planning sessions. Jasmine met with department heads, listened to concerned employees, and began laying the groundwork for the changes she had promised. By the time evening rolled around, Jasmine was exhausted but exhilarated. She had made real progress, but she knew the hardest parts were still to come. As she gathered her things to leave, her phone buzzed with a text from her father. Heard about what you did at the Grand Horizon. Proud of you, baby girl. Keep shaking things up. Jasmine smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Her father had always been her biggest supporter, encouraging her to challenge the status quo and fight for what was right. His approval meant more to her than he probably realized. As she left the hotel, Jasmine noticed Shanice waiting at the bus stop. On impulse, she approached the young woman. "Shanice," Jasmine called out, "can I offer you a ride home?" Shanice looked surprised, but nodded gratefully. As they drove through the city, Jasmine took the opportunity to learn more about Shanice's experiences and aspirations. "I've always dreamed of being a chef," Shanice admitted as they neared her neighborhood. "But I never thought it was possible, you know? Not for someone like me, in a place like this." Jasmine felt a pang in her heart, recognizing the self-doubt that came from years of systemic discrimination. "Shanice," she said firmly, "I want you to know that things are going to be different from now on. If being a chef is your dream, we're going to make sure you have every opportunity to achieve it." As Shanice got out of the car, her eyes shining with a new hope, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. This was why she was here, not just to implement policies, but to change lives, one person at a time. Driving home, Jasmine reflected on the day's events. She had made progress, but she knew the road ahead would be challenging. There would be resistance, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But she was ready for it all. Because with every small victory, whether it was Sarah's excitement about new hiring practices, Marcus's innovative use of technology, or the spark of hope in Shanice's eyes, Jasmine knew she was making a difference. And that made all the challenges worth facing. As she pulled into her driveway, Jasmine's phone buzzed again. It was a message from Chef Martinez. "Emergency at the hotel. Need you here ASAP." Jasmine's heart raced as she read the message. What could have happened? Had there been backlash to her new policies already? She took a deep breath, steeling herself for whatever lay ahead. Whatever the crisis was, she would face it head-on. Turning her car around, Jasmine headed back to the Grand Horizon, ready to tackle whatever challenge awaited her. The real test of her leadership was just beginning. Jasmine's mind raced as she sped back to the Grand Horizon Hotel. The city lights blurred past her window, but her focus was razor-sharp. What kind of emergency could have arisen so quickly? Had there been an accident, a confrontation, or something worse? As she pulled into the hotel's parking lot, Jasmine spotted Chef Martinez waiting for her at the entrance. His usually calm demeanor was visibly shaken, which only heightened her concern. "Chef, what's going on?" Jasmine asked as she hurried towards him. Chef Martinez's expression was grim. "It's Tom Bradshaw," he said, his voice low. "He called an emergency meeting with all the department heads. He's trying to undermine everything we started today." Jasmine felt a surge of anger, but she kept her voice steady. "Where are they meeting?" "The executive boardroom," Chef Martinez replied. "They've been in there for about 20 minutes. Jasmine nodded, her jaw set with determination. "Let's go." As they walked briskly through the hotel lobby, Jasmine could feel the eyes of the night staff on her. News traveled fast in places like this, and she knew that how she handled this situation would set the tone for everything that followed. When they reached the boardroom, Jasmine paused for a moment outside the door. She could hear Tom Bradshaw's voice, loud and insistent, though she couldn't make out the words. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and pushed the door open. The room fell silent as Jasmine entered. Around the large oak table sat all the department heads, their expressions ranging from worried to defiant. At the head of the table stood Tom Bradshaw, a stack of papers in his hand and a look of surprise on his face. "Good evening, everyone," Jasmine said, her voice calm but authoritative. "I hear we're having an emergency meeting. I'm glad I could join you." Tom recovered quickly, his surprise morphing into a smug smile. "Ms. Carter, how unexpected. We were just discussing some concerns about the new policies you've proposed." Jasmine met his gaze steadily. "I see. And you felt these concerns were so urgent that they required a late-night emergency meeting without my knowledge." She moved to the empty chair at the opposite end of the table from Tom, gesturing for Chef Martinez to take the seat beside her. "Please, Mr. Bradshaw, continue. I'm very interested to hear these concerns." Tom hesitated for a moment, clearly thrown off by Jasmine's calm demeanor, but he quickly rallied, shuffling his papers importantly. "Well, Ms. Carter, the fact is that your proposed changes pose a significant risk to our operations," he began. "I've run some preliminary numbers, and the cost of implementing these new policies could be astronomical. Not to mention the potential legal risks of changing our hiring practices so drastically." He passed out copies of a report to everyone at the table. "As you can see, If we implement Mr. Carter's suggestions, we're looking at a potential drop in profits of up to 15% in the first year alone. A murmur ran through the room. Jasmine could see worry etched on many faces. But as she glanced down at the report in front of her, she felt a surge of confidence. She had seen tactics like this before. "Thank you for your thorough analysis, Mr. Bradshaw," Jasmine said, her voice carrying clearly across the room. "I'm impressed by how quickly you were able to put this together. However, I do have a few questions about your methodology." She stood up, commanding the attention of everyone in the room. "First, I noticed that your projections assume a significant drop in customer satisfaction. Could you explain the basis for that assumption?" Tom looked flustered. "Well, it's common sense, isn't it? Changing our staff composition so drastically is bound to impact our service quality." Jasmine raised an eyebrow. "Is it? Because numerous studies have shown that diverse teams actually improve customer satisfaction, particularly in the hospitality industry. In fact, a recent report by the National Hotel Association found that hotels with diverse staff saw an average increase in customer satisfaction scores of 12% over a 2-year period. She turned to the rest of the room. "Has anyone here seen that report? No? I'd be happy to share it with all of you tomorrow." Tom's face had reddened, but Jasmine pressed on. "I also noticed that your cost projections include a sizable budget for legal fees. Are you anticipating legal challenges to our new, more inclusive hiring practices, Mr. Bradshaw?" "It's a possibility we have to consider," Tom sputtered. Jasmine nodded thoughtfully. "You're right. We do need to consider all possibilities, which is why I've already consulted with our legal team. They've assured me that our new policies are not only legally sound, but actually reduce our risk of discrimination lawsuits. I'd be happy to have them brief you on the details." She could see the tide turning in the room. The worried looks were being replaced by thoughtful expressions, and a few people were even nodding along with her words. "Look," Jasmine said, her tone softening slightly. "I understand that change can be scary. We're pushing ourselves out of our comfort zones, and that's never easy. But the reality is, the world is changing. Our customers are changing. If we don't adapt, we'll be left behind." She looked each person in the room in the eye as she continued. "The changes we're implementing aren't just about doing the right thing morally, although that is important. They're about positioning our hotel for long-term success in a diverse global market." Jasmine pulled out her own folder and began passing out documents. These are case studies of hotels and resorts that have implemented similar diversity and inclusion initiatives. As you can see, after an initial adjustment period, they all saw significant improvements in employee retention, customer satisfaction, and yes, Mr. Bradshaw, profitability. The room was silent as people leafed through the documents. Jasmine could see the wheels turning in their minds, preconceptions being challenged, and new possibilities being considered. Finally, Sarah from HR spoke up. "Ms. Carter, I have to say, I'm impressed. You've clearly done your homework. I think these changes could really benefit our hotel." Marcus from IT nodded in agreement. "I'm excited about the possibilities. A more diverse team could bring fresh ideas and perspectives to all our departments." Tom Bradshaw looked around the room, realizing he was losing his audience. "Now, hold on," he blustered. "We can't just throw out years of established practices based on a few case studies and promises." Jasmine held up a hand, her voice firm but not unkind. "Mr. Bradshaw, no one is suggesting we throw everything out. What I'm proposing is that we evolve, that we build on our strengths while addressing our weaknesses. Your experience and knowledge are valuable, and I want you to be part of this process, but it has to be a process of growth, not stagnation." She turned to address the entire room once more. "I know this isn't easy. I'm asking all of you to step out of your comfort zones, to challenge your assumptions, and to work harder than ever before. But I believe in this hotel, and I believe in every person in this room. Together, we can make the Grand Horizon a leader in our industry, not just in profitability, but in creating a truly inclusive and welcoming environment for both our staff and our guests." The silence that followed was broken by a slow, building applause. Jasmine saw heads nodding, smiles breaking out on faces that had been skeptical just moments before. Even Tom Bradshaw, though he wasn't clapping, had lost his combative stance. As the meeting broke up, people came up to Jasmine one by one, offering support and ideas. Sarah and Marcus were particularly enthusiastic, already brainstorming ways to implement the new policies in their departments. Tom Bradshaw was the last to approach her. His expression was hard to read, a mix of grudging respect and lingering skepticism. "Miss Carter," he said stiffly, "I still have concerns about these changes. But I have to admit, you've given me some things to think about. Perhaps we could meet tomorrow to discuss how finance can support these initiatives while minimizing risk." Jasmine nodded, offering a small smile. "I'd like that, Mr. Bradshaw. Your expertise will be crucial in making this transition successful." As the room emptied, Chef Martinez approached Jasmine, a broad grin on his face. "That was incredible, Ms. Carter. The way you handled Tom, the data you presented, you've won them over." Jasmine let out a long breath, feeling the tension of the confrontation finally leaving her body. "We've won the first battle, Chef, but the war is far from over. We have a lot of work ahead of us." Chef Martinez nodded, his expression turning serious. "You're right, but after tonight, I believe we can do it. You've given us all hope, Ms. Carter." As they walked out of the boardroom, Jasmine felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had faced her first major challenge head-on and come out victorious, but she knew this was just the beginning. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new resistances to overcome, but for now, as she drove home in the quiet of the late night, Jasmine allowed herself to feel a sense of accomplishment. She was making a difference, one step at a time. As she pulled into her driveway, her phone buzzed with a text. It was from Shanice. "Mrs. Carter, I heard about what happened tonight. Thank you for fighting for us. You're giving us all courage to dream bigger." Jasmine smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. This was why she was here. This was what made all the struggles worthwhile. With renewed determination, she headed inside, ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. As the first rays of sunlight peeked through her curtains, Jasmine was already wide awake, her mind buzzing with plans for the day ahead. The events of the previous night had energized her, reinforcing her commitment to transforming the Grand Horizon Hotel. She arrived at the hotel earlier than usual, determined to capitalize on the momentum she had built. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed a palpable change in the atmosphere. Staff members who had previously kept their heads down now met her gaze, offering small smiles or nods of acknowledgement. Jasmine's first order of business was a meeting with Sarah from HR and Marcus from IT. They had both shown enthusiasm for the new initiatives, and Jasmine wanted to harness that energy. "Good morning," Jasmine greeted them as they entered her office. "Thank you both for coming in early. I think we have a real opportunity here to lead the charge on our new diversity and inclusion efforts." Sarah nodded eagerly. "Absolutely, Mrs. Carter. I've already started drafting new job descriptions that focus on skills and experience rather than arbitrary requirements that might exclude qualified candidates from diverse backgrounds." Marcus chimed in. "And I've been working on expanding that data analysis project I showed you. I think we can use it to identify areas where we can improve our customer service for guests from all backgrounds." Jasmine felt a surge of optimism. This was exactly the kind of proactive thinking she had hoped to inspire. "That's fantastic, both of you. Sarah, I'd like you to head up our new Diversity and Inclusion Committee. Can you put together a diverse team from various departments to help guide our efforts?" Sarah's eyes widened with excitement. "Of course, I have some great candidates in mind already." "Excellent," Jasmine continued. "And Marcus, I want you to work closely with the committee. Your data will be crucial in helping us measure our progress and identify areas for improvement." As they delved into the details of their plans, Jasmine couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. This was what real change looked like, not just top-down mandates, but engaged employees taking ownership of the process. Their meeting was interrupted by a knock at the door. To Jasmine's surprise, it was Tom Bradshaw. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his tone more respectful than it had been the previous night. I hope I'm not interrupting. I wanted to discuss those financial projections we talked about. Jasmine nodded, pleasantly surprised by his initiative. Of course, Mr. Bradshaw, Sarah, Marcus, thank you for your time. Let's reconvene this afternoon to finalize our plans. As Sarah and Marcus left, Tom took a seat across from Jasmine. He looked uncomfortable, but determined. I've been up most of the night reviewing those case studies you provided, he began. And, well, I have to admit, the numbers are more promising than I initially thought. Jasmine leaned forward, intrigued. Go on. Tom pulled out a stack of papers. I've run some new projections based on the data from those case studies, adjusted for our specific situation. If we implement these changes carefully, we could actually see a net positive impact on our bottom line within the first 18 months. Jasmine felt a wave of relief and satisfaction. This was a major breakthrough. That's excellent work, Mr. Bradshaw. I'm impressed by your thoroughness. Tom nodded, a hint of pride in his eyes. Thank you. I want you to know, Miss Carter, that while I may have reservations about some of these changes, I'm committed to the success of this hotel. If this is the direction we're going, I want to make sure we do it right. I appreciate that, Mr. Bradshaw, Jasmine said sincerely. Your experience and expertise will be invaluable in making this transition successful. In fact, I'd like you to work closely with Sarah and the Diversity and Inclusion Committee to ensure we're considering all financial aspects of these changes. Tom seemed taken aback by this show of trust, but he nodded firmly. I'd be happy to, Ms. Carter. As Tom left her office, Jasmine allowed herself a moment of quiet celebration. Winning over Tom Bradshaw, even partially, was a significant victory. His influence among the longtime staff members could help smooth the path for the changes ahead. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. Jasmine spoke with legal to ensure all their new policies were airtight, consulted with marketing about how to communicate their new commitment to diversity to their guests, and even had a long conversation with the head of housekeeping about creating more flexible schedules to accommodate staff with family commitments. By lunchtime, Jasmine was exhausted but exhilarated. She decided to take her lunch in the staff cafeteria, wanting to be more visible and accessible to the employees. As she entered the cafeteria, a hush fell over the room. Jasmine could feel all eyes on her as she made her way to the food line. She smiled warmly at the cafeteria staff, making a point to read their name tags and thank each of them personally. When she turned to find a seat, she spotted Shanice sitting alone at a corner table. Without hesitation, Jasmine walked over to her. Mind if I join you? She asked. Shanice looked up, startled. Ms. Carter, of course, please, sit down. As Jasmine took her seat, she could hear the buzz of conversation starting up again around them. She knew her choice of lunch companion would not go unnoticed. How are you doing, Shanice? Jasmine asked, genuinely interested. I appreciated your text last night. Shanice's eyes lit up. I'm doing well, thank you. And thank you for everything you're doing here. It means more than you know. Jasmine smiled warmly. I'm glad to hear that. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something. Sarah from HR is putting together a diversity and inclusion committee, and I think you'd be a valuable member. Would you be interested? Shanice's eyes widened in surprise. Me? But I'm just a kitchen assistant. You're not just anything, Shanice, Jasmine said firmly. You're a dedicated employee with valuable insights and experiences. Your voice deserves to be heard. Shanice's eyes welled up with tears, but she blinked them back, straightening her shoulders. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. I'd be honored to join the committee. As they continued their lunch, discussing Shanice's experiences at the hotel and her aspirations for the future, Jasmine noticed a change in the atmosphere of the cafeteria. The initial tension had dissipated, replaced by a buzz of excitement. She could see small groups of employees huddled together, stealing glances at her and Shanice, clearly discussing the implications of what they were witnessing. After lunch, as Jasmine made her way back to her office, she was stopped by Dorothy, the older housekeeper who had spoken up in the staff meeting. Ms. Carter, Dorothy said, her voice low but intense, I just wanted to say, seeing you eat lunch with Shanice, it meant a lot, to all of us. It's been a long time since we felt like someone in charge really saw us, you know? Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. Thank you, Dorothy. I want you to know that I see all of you, and I'm committed to making sure everyone in this hotel feels valued and respected. Dorothy nodded, a small smile on her face. We believe you, Mrs. Carter, and we're ready to work hard to make these changes happen. As Dorothy walked away, Jasmine felt a renewed sense of purpose. She knew the road ahead would be challenging, but moments like these reminded her why it was all worth it. The afternoon brought a series of strategy meetings with department heads, each focused on how to implement the new diversity and inclusion policies in their specific areas. Jasmine was impressed by the level of engagement and creativity she saw. Ideas flowed freely, from mentorship programs for junior staff to cultural competency training for customer-facing employees. As the day wound down, Jasmine found herself back in her office, reviewing the progress they had made. She was about to call it a day when there was a knock at her door. "Come in," she called out. To her surprise, it was Chef Martinez, looking uncharacteristically nervous. "Chef," Jasmine greeted him warmly. "What can I do for you?" Chef Martinez took a deep breath. "Miss Carter, I have a confession to make. The emergency last night, it wasn't exactly as I presented it." Jasmine felt a flicker of concern. "What do you mean?" "I overheard Tom planning that meeting," Chef Martinez explained. "But instead of just telling you about it, I made it sound more urgent than it was. I was afraid if I just reported it, you might dismiss it as office politics. I wanted to make sure you came in person to confront it head-on." Jasmine leaned back in her chair, processing this information. Part of her wanted to be angry at the manipulation, but she couldn't deny that it had led to a crucial turning point. "I appreciate your honesty, Chef," she said finally. "And while I don't condone the deception, I understand your intentions were good. In the future, though, I need you to trust me with the full truth, no matter how you think I might react. We're in this together, and that requires complete transparency." "Understood." Chef Martinez nodded, looking relieved. "Absolutely, Ms. Carter. It won't happen again. And thank you for understanding." As Chef Martinez left, Jasmine reflected on the day's events. From Tom Bradshaw's unexpected turnaround to Shanice's growing confidence, from the excitement in the strategy meetings to Dorothy's heartfelt words, she could feel the hotel beginning to transform. There would be more challenges ahead, she knew. Change was never easy, and there would be setbacks and resistance along the way. But as she gathered her things to head home, Jasmine felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She was making a difference, not just in policies and procedures, but in people's lives. And that, she realized, was the true measure of success. As the weeks passed, the Grand Horizon Hotel began to transform. The changes were subtle at first, a more diverse group of candidates being interviewed for open positions, new training programs on cultural sensitivity, small adjustments to make the workspace more inclusive. But gradually, the impact became more noticeable. Jasmine found herself constantly busy, overseeing the implementation of new policies, mediating conflicts that arose from the changes, and continuing to push for progress. It was exhausting work, but every small victory made it worthwhile. One morning, about 2 months into her tenure, Jasmine arrived at the hotel to find an unusual buzz of excitement. As she walked through the lobby, she noticed staff members huddled in small groups, talking animatedly. "Miss Carter," Shanice called out, hurrying over with a bright smile. "Have you seen the news?" Jasmine shook her head, curious. "What news?" Shanice handed her a tablet open to a popular travel website. The headline read, "Grand Horizon Hotel, a model of diversity and inclusion in the hospitality industry." As Jasmine skimmed the article, her heart swelled with pride. The piece praised the hotel's recent initiatives, citing improved customer satisfaction scores and a notable increase in bookings from diverse clientele. It even included quotes from satisfied guests who had noticed and appreciated the more inclusive atmosphere. "This is incredible," Jasmine said, her voice thick with emotion. "And it's all thanks to the hard work of every single person in this hotel." The day that followed was a whirlwind of congratulatory calls and meetings. Corporate was thrilled with the positive publicity. and Jasmine found herself fielding requests for interviews and speaking engagements. But amidst all the excitement, she made sure to take time to personally thank each department for their contributions. As she made her rounds, Jasmine couldn't help but notice the changes in the staff. There was a new energy, a sense of pride and purpose that hadn't been there before. Even Tom Bradshaw, who had initially been her biggest opponent, seemed reinvigorated. "Ms. Carter," he said, catching her in the hallway. "I just wanted to say, you were right. These changes, they've been good for the hotel, and not just financially. The atmosphere here, it's better than it's been in years." Jasmine smiled warmly. "Thank you, Tom. Your support has been crucial in making this work. We couldn't have done it without you." As the day wound down, Jasmine found herself in the hotel kitchen, drawn by the delicious smells wafting through the halls. To her surprise, she found Shanice at one of the cooking stations, confidently directing a team of kitchen staff. "Shanice," Jasmine called out, amazed. "What's going on here?" Shanice turned, her face beaming with pride. "Ms. Carter, remember how I told you I've always dreamed of being a chef? Well, thanks to the new mentorship program, I've been training under Chef Martinez. And today, he's letting me lead the preparation for a special event we're hosting." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. This was why she had fought so hard for these changes, to give people like Shanice the opportunity to pursue their dreams. "That's wonderful, Shanice," she said sincerely. "I'm so proud of you." As Jasmine left the kitchen, she ran into Chef Martinez. "You've done a great job with Shanice," she told him. "Thank you for believing in her." Chef Martinez smiled, a twinkle in his eye. "She made it easy. That girl has talent, Miss Carter. In a few years, she might even take my job." The next few months flew by in a blur of activity. The Grand Horizon became known as a leader in diversity and inclusion in the hospitality industry, and Jasmine found herself increasingly in demand as a speaker and consultant. But even as the hotel's reputation grew, Jasmine never lost sight of the individual stories that made up their success. Like Marcus from ITE, whose data analysis project had been picked up by other hotels in the chain, leading to his promotion to a corporate-level position. Or Sarah from HR, whose innovative hiring practices were being studied as a model for the entire industry. There were challenges too, of course. Not everyone embraced the changes, and Jasmine had to deal with resistance and setbacks. But with each obstacle overcome, the hotel grew stronger and more united. 1 year to the day after Jasmine had first walked into the Grand Horizon, she stood in the grand ballroom, addressing the entire staff. The room was packed, with employees from every department gathered to hear her speak. "A year ago," Jasmine began, her voice carrying clearly through the room, "I walked into this hotel as a stranger. I came with big ideas and even bigger challenges. And I have to admit, there were moments when I wondered if we could really make the changes we needed to make." She paused, looking out at the sea of faces before her. She saw diversity in those faces, different races, ages, genders, but more than that, she saw unity. But you all proved me wrong," she continued, her voice filled with emotion. "You embraced change, even when it was difficult. You supported each other, even when it meant stepping out of your comfort zones. You turned this hotel into more than just a place to work. You've made it a community." Jasmine gestured to the large screen behind her, which began to display a series of images. Shanice leading her kitchen team, Marcus presenting his data analysis to corporate executives, Sarah conducting a diverse hiring panel. "These are just a few of the success stories we've seen this year," Jasmine said. "But every single one of you has contributed to our success. Whether you're cleaning rooms, managing finances, or greeting guests at the front desk, you've all played a crucial role in making the Grand Horizon a truly inclusive and welcoming place for both our staff and our guests." She took a deep breath, her voice growing more serious. "But our work isn't done. We've made great strides, but we can't become complacent. The fight for true equality and inclusion is ongoing, and it requires constant vigilance and effort." Jasmine looked out at the crowd, meeting as many eyes as she could. "I'm asking each of you to continue this journey with me. To keep pushing for progress, to keep supporting each other, and to never lose sight of the impact we can have, not just on our hotel, but on our entire industry and our broader community." As she finished speaking, the room erupted into applause. Jasmine felt overwhelmed by the response, tears pricking at the corners of her eyes. After the applause died down, Jasmine made her way through the crowd, shaking hands and exchanging words with as many staff members as she could. The sense of community, of shared purpose, was palpable. As the event wound down, Jasmine found herself back in the lobby, the place where her journey at the Grand Horizon had begun. She stood for a moment, taking in the bustling scene around her. The diversity she saw in the staff, in the guests, filled her with a sense of pride and accomplishment. Her reverie was interrupted by a familiar voice. "Ms. Carter?" Jasmine turned to see Shanice approaching, a nervous smile on her face. "Do you have a moment?" "Of course. Shanice, what's on your mind?" Shanice took a deep breath. "I just wanted to thank you for everything. You've changed my life, Ms. Carter. Not just mine, but so many others here. You've shown us what's possible when someone believes in us." Jasmine felt a lump form in her throat. "Shanice, But Shanice wasn't finished. "And I wanted you to be the first to know, Chef Martinez is retiring next year, and he's recommended me to take over as head chef." Jasmine's eyes widened in surprise and delight. "Shanice, that's wonderful. Congratulations." Impulsively, she pulled Shanice into a hug. As they embraced, Jasmine felt the full weight of what they had accomplished over the past year. It wasn't just about policies or profits. It was about changing lives, opening doors, and creating opportunities where none had existed before. As Shanice walked away, her steps light with excitement for her future, Jasmine turned back to survey the lobby once more. She saw Tom Bradshaw chatting amiably with a diverse group of new hires. She saw Sarah from HR giving a tour to a potential employee who used a wheelchair. She saw Marcus, back from corporate for a visit, deep in conversation with the IT team. In that moment, Jasmine realized that she had achieved something truly remarkable. She had not just changed a hotel, she had changed a culture. And in doing so, she had set an example that could ripple out far beyond the walls of the Grand Horizon. There would be more challenges ahead, she knew. The work of creating true equality and inclusion was never done. But looking at the vibrant, diverse community that had formed around her, Jasmine felt ready to face whatever came next. As she walked towards her office, ready to start another day of pushing for progress, Jasmine felt a deep sense of satisfaction. She had taken a stand against discrimination, had faced down prejudice and resistance, and had emerged victorious. Not through force or confrontation, but through perseverance, education, and the power of leading by example. The Grand Horizon Hotel stood as a beacon of what was possible when diversity and inclusion were not just buzzwords, but lived values. And Jasmine Carter, the woman who had once been mistaken for just another guest, now stood at its helm, ready to lead it, and the entire industry, into a more inclusive future. As she reached her office door, Jasmine paused, her hand on the handle. She thought about how far they had come, and how far they still had to go. But for the first time in a long time, she felt truly optimistic about the future. With a smile, she opened the door and stepped inside, ready to face whatever new challenges the day might bring. Because she knew that with determination, compassion, and a commitment to justice, anything was possible. The story of the Grand Horizon Hotel and of Jasmine Carter was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning.